Hey everyone, NicMakesPlays here. Today I'm going to go over what I think are the top 5 best decks in Legends of Runeterra. Currently, I think there are 5 decks that stand above the rest and have a clear edge against the rest of the competition. So we can go right into it, and I'll state what I think are the best 5. If you use these, you have a super high chance of doing well, all the way to the highest rank in the game. First deck, and what I think is the best deck in the entire game, is Twisted Fate Fizz. I actually have a video on this deck also, if you want to check it out. But I'll definitely go over it real quick. So this deck is extremely explosive. It utilizes Wiggly Burblefish. I'll read it real quick. Reduce my cost by 1 for each spell you've cast this game. When I'm summoning, create in hand a 1-cost spell from your regions. And it's elusive, which is the big thing. So basically, you can easily play a bunch of spells to get this down to cost 0. And you can play multiples in one turn. And you can also copy it with Iterative Improvement. Pick a follower, create a copy of it in hand, +1/+1. So you can play it, play another one, then you copy one, play another one. They all cost 0. So you can do turns where you just do extremely explosive amounts of damage. And then on top of this game plan, with these elusives, you also have Level Up Twisted Fate. Level Up Twisted Fate, when he's in his level form, you have to draw 8 cards. Each time you play a card, he draws 1. So we level up the first time you play a card that turn, he draws 1 and refills spell mana 1. The second time you play a card that turn, he does 1 to all enemies. The third time you play a card that turn, you stun an enemy and deal 2 to it. And he does all of that each turn when he's leveled up. Essentially, when he's leveled up, you almost instantly win. Basically, nothing can beat what he does when he's leveled up. So you really have multiple win cons going for you, where you can do huge explosive damage Burblefish, but you're also threatening Twisted Fate level up, and if that happens, you just win right away. Fizz can get chip damage in the early game because he's an elusive, and when you cast a spell, he becomes elusive. And also, if he's targeted, you can use a spell to stop the card targeting him and negate it. So you chip away early game with Fizz, you can chip away Ballistic Bot's Ignition, deals 1 damage each turn. And then you can threaten Twisted Fate's level up, and then basically when they've used the resources to try and stop you, you can just spam a bunch of Libero Fishes and kill 1 turn. We have 1 Mind Meld. This round grow allies' power and health, the number of spells you played this game. So I've had games where I've had 20 plus spells, and your whole field becomes 20/20s, which is pretty insane. And you're using elusives, a field full of elusives, so if even one goes through, it's game. You are able to use pick a card to just draw 3 cards. So place a card from the hand to deck to draw 3 next round start. This card allows you to draw a bunch with that big explosive Wiggly Burblefish turn. You always have fuel. And Suit Up, when drawing costs 2 less this round, grow an ally to 4/4. That's really strong on Fizz. Really strong in the 1/1s from Portal Cannon. Can protect Twisted Fate from Mystic Shot. And it's just pretty cheap because usually you play it turn strong when it costs 2. To make your elusives a huge threat or protect your cards. And one of the main combos with this deck is how easy level Twisted Fate. So as I said, the main way to win is Wiggly Burblefish, explosive turns, kill them in 1 turn. But Twisted Fate is a win con when he's leveled up, and I can show you the cards real quick. So when he's leveled up, he plays this, refill 1 spell mana, draw 1. He plays this, deal 1 to all allies. Then he exits, and he plays this, deal 2 and stun the strongest enemy each turn. So you may be thinking, okay, well, we could just Mystic Shot him, or you have to draw 8 plus cards. How quick could you do that? You can actually do that in 1 turn. And if you do it in 1 turn, a lot of times they aren't able to Mystic Shot because A, they may not run removal, because not every deck has removal. And B, if you can get them to tap in a certain mana, you can just level them up really fast, and it's so strong. So here's what you do. You play Twisted Fate. When he's played, in his non-level up form, you only get 1 of these effects. You just pick 1. You play blue card, okay? So that's refill 1 spell mana, draw 1. So he's 1 out of 8 because you drew 1. Make sense? 1 out of 8. You draw for turn. Oh, I guess we're not there yet. Okay, so we'll go in order. Refill 1 spell mana, draw 1. So he's 1 out of 8. And then you play pick a card. Place a card from your hand to top of your deck, draw 3. That's 4 out of 8 because you drew 1 from blue card and then 3 from this. So you're halfway there. You draw a card for turn. It's next turn now. You're 5 out of 8. Then you play Rummage. Discard 2 to draw 2, and then he's 7 out of 8. But if you discard Stress Testing, this card says, when I'm discarded, draw 1 fleeting, and he's 8 out of 8, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's a 1-turn level up. You play on turn 4, level him up on turn 5, and then you instantly win. Because at turn 5, nothing can beat you playing gold card, blue card, red card, blue card, red card, gold card. Every turn, it's just so hard to deal with. All you have to have is Twisted Fate and pick a card, and then you draw 3, so you have high odds of even drawing into the Rummage and Distress Testing. And then you just level them up, and you pretty much just win from there. So your opponent has to deal with this. Let's say your opponent even has removal for Twisted Fate at that point. okay, so you drew 3 cards, they use the removal of Twisted Fate, then that wastes some removal for that turn, and you can use all the cards you just drew to go for a huge, explosive Wiggly Burblefish turns where you play all the Wiggly Burblefishes in one turn. They're elusive because they cost 0 when you play them. You have improvement them, you play a bunch, you push for huge damage, and then Fizz is really good, hard to deal with the suit up, but one thing important about Fizz is the chance spell is actually really good in this deck. It's remove an attacking ally from combat to rally. So you attack with a bunch of elusives. They try and block one if they have like an elusive blocker. You Playful Trickster on it, pull them out of combat. Everything else goes through, so your opponent takes like 10 plus. Then it lets you attack again with all your elusive because you rallied. So you deal like 20 damage in one turn with this champ spell. Very strong. Can beat a lot of its counters. It definitely beats Lee Sin. It beats most decks in the game. Its worst matchup is probably Anivia and like Go Hard, but even then, this deck's so potent. It can beat a lot of them, and a lot of times those decks can't deal with Fizz plus Suit Up, chipping away 4 damage every single turn, because if they were to use like Vengeance or something to kill Fizz, then you can negate it with Fizz's effect. When you cast a spell, stop all any spells and skills targeting me, and give me a loose this round. So yeah, very strong. So that's the best deck in the game, in my opinion. But let's move on. I think the second best deck in the game, and a deck that is just now popping up to be a huge threat in the meta, is Aphelios Twisted Fate. Aphelios just came out, so this is very new, but I'm going to go over the main reason you run these Bilgewater cards, because you may be thinking, okay, I've seen much stuff with Aphelios, but why Twisted Fate? Like, why Bilgewater? What's really going on here? So part of the theory is that you just run the 2 best champs in the game. I think these are the 2 best champs in the game, Twisted Fate being the best and Aphelios being second best. They're both pretty insane if you can't stop them. As I said, if you level up Twisted Fate, it's an instant win. If you get Aphelios in the field, they don't kill him, he's kind of an instant win because he just generates so many cards. But the main combo of the deck is supposed to be this. So Aphelios, when you play him, the second card this turn, it's Nightfall. You get one of those moon weapons. I'll just go over the main one. I have a lot of videos on Aphelios and deck guides, and I'll probably make a deck guide in this deck, but let me just go over the main combo of this particular deck. You use Crescendum. Summon a 2-cost follower from your deck. If it has Nightfall, activate it. Okay, so just summon a 2-cost follower from your deck. So what you do is you summon Boxtopus, right? So Boxtopus says 2 mana, 3/4 challenger, play, deal 3 me. Play means it's played from your hand. So if you play it from your hand, it takes 3 damage. But if you summon it from the deck, it's summoned. It's not played. So if you use Crescendum, and this is only 2 drop in the deck, so you always get Boxtopus, you basically just summon a 2 mana, 3/4 challenger from your deck, which I guess people really quickly learned this is a very strong combo, to just summon a 3/4 challenger from your deck off of a free card you got from Aphelios. So it's like, yeah, the main thing is that you just summon Boxtopus from the deck, and decks can't do that. They can't beat that. If you play it on turn 3, like turn 1, you go Lunari Dustbringer. Turn 2, you just pass. Turn 3, you play the Petal from Dustbringer to summon Aphelios. I guess I'll show you this. Discards a Nightfall unit, and it triggers his Nightfall effect. You get Crescendum. You summon this from the deck. You just get a 3/4 that just clears like their Twisted Fate, their Aphelios, their threats. The thing about 4 health in this game is like, yeah, let's say you're playing P&Z or a lot of decks, they can deal with the Aphelios Twisted Fate sometimes if they have removal. They have 3 health, but Boxtopus has 4, and it's very hard to deal with the 4 health here. And yeah, so you just play that, and then you can get Calibrum next, which allows you to deal 3 to enemy follower, and you're just getting so much card advantage. So that's the main combo. But besides that, you run Wiggly Burblefish, which we saw as one of the main reasons that the first deck was so strong. In this deck, it's not as strong, but it's still just like a 0 mana 3/1 that gives you a card, so you can burst for crazy amounts of damage with the Burblefishes. Veiled Temple, each round, the first time you play 2 of the cards, you fill 2 mana and grant your strongest ally +1/+1. This card's hard to play in a lot of decks because it's like a tempo loss and such, but this gives this deck the ability to grind against like Anivia and like grindy matchups. This can really generate value over time. It's really good against slow control decks. It's not very good against like mid-range, or some mid-range it's good against, but it's not good against like aggressive decks. But against slow decks, this can really just get so much value over time. It basically gives you a way to win against slower decks. But yeah, you can win by leveling up Twisted Fate, you can win by leveling up Aphelios, so they have to deal with these or they lose. You're putting on a lot of pressure, so Boxtopus from your decks. You're kind of just, I wouldn't say like abusing a broken combo, but you're kind of just playing a pile of good cards that can summon Boxtopus from the deck and has 2 less champions where they level up, you win. But it also has good control too. This gets beyond, gives you options to beat the the moon weapons. You have Guiding Touch to heal. You can also use it to activate Nightfall, and you can heal on Boxbus. 3 Pale Cascade is good. Sunblessed Vigor can protect your Aphelios Twisted Fate. Pick a card's good to refuel level Twisted Fate. 2 Bastion, Great Eye, +1/+1 Spell Shield to protect these. Mind Meld is just a 1-of. This round grows always power and health to the number of spells you play this game. So you can also run Star Shaping in the Fangs this deck. I think I like Star Shaping a lot. This build is pretty generic. The build's changing by day because people are editing it and stuff, but this is basically like the generic like first build that everyone was playing. I like Star Shaping a lot in this deck too, though. But yeah, Mind Meld's just a good alternate win condition as a 1-of. So yeah, this deck's pretty straightforward. Just 2 best champs in the game. Some boxers from the deck. Does generically good stuff. I mean, Targon has generically good tools, and it's a lot stronger than it looks. Basically, summoning box the deck, I know that's about the whole thing. We can go to the next deck now, but that's really hard to beat, and it's really strong. So that combo is what makes this deck so good. All right, next is Zoe Lee Sin. So this deck has fallen off slightly since the nerfs. Basically, they nerfed Pale Cascade and Hush. Nerfing Hush could help Lee Sin in a way because it is good against Lee Sin, but it's more important that they have the Hush to deal with enemy tools. So Zoe Lee Sin, a deck that may not need an introduction. I have a video on this deck as well. Lee Sin kills people in 1 turn. What you do is you give him Overwhelm, and then you use his leveled up form. Says, when you cast spell, give me Challenger, and Dragon Rage enemies I challenge. So Dragon Rage, he kicks an enemy into the Nexus, striking both, which means he strikes the enemy and he strikes the Nexus. So what you do is you give him the 10 attack, you deal 10 because you're striking the Nexus, but also if you have Overwhelm, you're striking the enemy. But since Dragon Rage removes the enemy, it deals 10 to the Nexus through Overwhelm and 10 Nexus through the actual Dragon Rage. So basically all you have to know is that this plus Overwhelm and 10 attack is 20 damage in 1 turn. And the whole deck is built around setting that up. You have Zoe in the early game that they have to deal with because she's just generating so many super cool star charts that don't kill her. You have Eye the Dragon, which is one of the best cards, like, I don't know about in the game, but definitely in Ionia. Attune, so it gets a mana back when it's summoned. So it's basically essentially a net 1 mana, 1/3, that summons a Dragonling on round start. You play 2 spells every turn, which is Ephemeral and Lifesteal. This card is so insane, like so insane for its cost. It's ridiculous. I think this card is broken straight up, but we'll move on. So basically, with this net 1 mana card, as long as you use 2 spells each turn, which you always do, you summon 2/1 Lifesteal cards, which are, one, they're blockers, which is important because that's already saving you health just from if they were to attack you block something, and then also Lifesteal. So it's like you heal 2 and block. It basically ruins all your opponent's attacks like the rest of the game, and you just always want to use this on defense. You know, on offense you can attack with it, and they're not going to block it because if they block it, you still Lifesteal and you kill their units. They usually just take it, which is nice because if they take the Dragonling, you're chipping away on their health. It means let's say you chip in for 1 Dragonling, they go to 18. You don't need to deal 20 damage. You don't have to get Lee Sin to 10 attack. You can give them the 9 attack now because they're 18. So really strong, has access to this card. Sparklefly is an elusive lifesteal. You can put a bunch of buffs on it, like Mentor the Stones. Basically, if you don't draw Lee Sin, you try and win off like Sparklefly and Zoe, and you get them to waste their Hushes, waste their removals on Sparklefly and Zoe, and then when you play Lee Sin, you just kill them because they lost all of their resources. Run 3 Deny, 3 Notify, you run Bastion. These are all good when you try and go for a game. It's just a super hard strategy to deal with when you kind of just force them to deal Zoe and Sparklefly and you kill them 1 turn with Lee Sin. This deck is so strong, or one of the reasons it's so strong is certain strategies, they can't deal with this. They can't deal with this deck that is unaffected by a lot of strategies because they just don't care about certain things your opponent's doing. Like, for example, if you're playing against a Feeler Rush deck or a deck with like Avalanche and Withering Wail and like healing, it's like you kill them in 1 turn, so you don't really care. Like, if I'm playing an aggro deck and they play like Avalanche or Withering Wail, I'm like, oh man, that's super hard to beat. I might lose this game. But this deck, in those matchups particularly, isn't phased because they don't care about those. So it's like certain matchups are very favorable for it. That makes it so it can just get insanely strong wins on a lot of popular decks. It's just a huge perk to play against certain matchups and just feel like, okay, well, I win. Like, I know that there are strategies to beat my strategy at all, and it has that effect on a lot of the meta. But yeah, really strong deck. Kill people 1 turn with Lee Sin. Next is actually kind of interesting. It is Anivia. It's very interesting to me because in the past, Feel the Rush, which is another Shadow Owl for your control deck, usually was the preferred strategy to Anivia, and it utilizes a card called Feel the Rush, which summons 2 champions for your deck, gives them 10-10, and it just stalls until that. But lately, Anivia has actually been a top dog. I think Anivia's in an amazing position in the game right now, like extremely strong, and there's a few reasons why. If we go over some next to the meta, like Twisted Fate Fizz, originally this was built, or not built, but it's been a thing before, but one of the main reasons it came in the meta is that it has such a good matchup against Twisted Fate Fizz. Twisted Fate Fizz can't deal with Anivia just pinging for 1 damage on all their units when they get Anivia down. You have Vile Feast for a lot of their stuff. You have Grassly and Dying, Withering Wail. These are 2 Renations at the bottom. You have a lot of things that they just can't beat, and it's kind of just like a counter matchup. And it has an effect on a lot of different decks. It destroys all aggro decks because they can't beat the Withering Wails and the Avalanche and stuff, so that's good for them. It also isn't phased by a lot of strategies because it's just so linear. Like, you just kind of base your whole deck on Anivia. So I just wanted to highlight real quick that the style this is going for is very unique, and it's kind of like Lee Sin isn't phased by certain matchups. Well, this isn't phased by certain matchups like aggro and stuff like that. So what makes this deck so strong besides that? You might be thinking, okay, well, beat Twisted Fate Fizz, but what makes it, what's the deal here? Why not Feel the Rush? There's a new card called Gluttony. Kill an ally with Last Breath to summon a follower from your deck that costs 1 more. Okay, so this is the main combo with the Anivia. So you play Anivia, and then you can use Gluttony on it. You can use response to like an Obliterate, you can use a response to like removal, or you can just use it straight up. So kill an ally, so you can kill a champion. You kill Anivia, then Anivia, and it summons Rekindler from your deck, summoning another Anivia. So you kill Anivia, get another Anivia, but Anivia becomes her egg. So when she dies, she becomes an egg. Egg Anivia, if you will. And on round start, when you have 10 mana, she becomes leveled up and back to Anivia. So basically, it kills Anivia, summons Rekindler, which reborns Anivia, but then the egg's still there, and then becomes another Anivia. So you get 2 Anivias and a Rekindler. And this is really strong, because one of the hardest matchups this deck had was Invoking, because they have a card that says Obliterate an enemy, and you can obliterate Anivia, which banishes her, so you don't even get the egg at all, but you can use this in response. And before, you had Glimpse to counter that kind of play, but now you have more copies. You just have more things that makes Anivia more resilient. And I personally think one of the issues holding this deck back was its inability to be proactive a lot of the time. A lot of decks can just kind of beat this deck when it just sits there, doesn't do that much. Anivia isn't too much pressure. Yeah, if you're playing like aggro or something, and like your Withering Wails and your Avalanches are going to get insane value, and you're going to win because they just run out of steam. But a lot of decks, they can play through those, or they don't really care if you're just like playing slow, because they're just winning by doing more like bigger health things or late game things. But this lets your deck be proactive to try and win and put on pressure against matchups you need it to do. This deck also runs 3 Harrowing, revive 6 strongest allies that died this game, grant them ephemeral. So basically, let's say you did their Kindler thing, 2 Anivias, they all die, whatever, and you play Harrowing, you just reborn all these Anivias, and you kill, like, you push for like 10 plus damage off of Anivia's ability, attack, deal 2 to all enemies, and when she dies, she becomes like Anivia. But when they die off the ephemeral, so you attack, you deal like 10, whatever, they all die, they become egg, and the next turn they just become Anivia again. So basically, Harrowing just summons like 5 Anivias. And it's pretty insane. The box is really good right now. I can see people running more of the box. This is a standard list. I didn't really build this myself. There's definitely room for experimentation. I don't know if they run. Some run 0 Catalyst, some run 2, some run 1, some run 3. I don't know. But yeah, this deck is really well positioned in the meta. It is extremely strong against Twisted Fate Fizz, extremely strong against a lot of aggro decks, and it's just good at what it does. So I think Anivia's the 4th best deck for the first time in a while. We've seen her. She's been good, but this Gluttony card makes her insane. I think her positioning is really strong. All right, final deck. This deck is no stranger to competitive play. This is a deck that's been around since the beta. This is a deck that's been around since the very, very beginning of the game, and it's Shen Fiora. I personally don't think Shen Fiora in the past is... Like, I always thought it was good, but I never thought it was tier 1. I think it's one of the most overrated decks in the game. People act like it's so good, but it actually isn't crazy good. But right now, its positioning is really strong, because it can beat Twisted Fate Fizz, because it has Sharp Sight and Spirit Refuge to heal back. It can beat Anivia, because it has access to denies and notifies, and you can just kind of get the 4/4 with Fiora. It also can beat... From other decks we know, whatever. Oh, Aphelios. It can beat Aphelios. It can really just utilize the barriers to beat Aphelios and Boxtopus. So it has a lot of strong matchups, because Aphelios is Calibrum. The card is 3 to follower. It's a follower. It can't actually hit champions, so it can't hit Fiora. So this deck, I think, slips in the top 5 because it has such good matchups against the tier 1 decks, and it's also just really strong in general. Its biggest issue is that it's inconsistent. It can brick. There are ways to mitigate that by adding a Laurent Protege, another 3-cost follower, but I'll go over that in a bit. Let's just go over what the deck does. So Fiora, if you don't know what Fiora does, here we go. 3-mana, 3/3 challenger. I've killed 2 enemies, leveled up. When I've killed 4 enemies and survived, you win the game. Wow, pretty impressive, right? This is one of your main win cons in this deck. You can win by other things, but this is mostly what makes the deck so strong against a lot of things. Shen gives things barrier, which means barrier negates the next damage you would take. So you basically just make it so Fiora doesn't take damage for a turn, and you just you farm away her her level up. But you're on good caretaker, 1 cost, get barrier when it's played. River Shaper is like an alternative to Fiora, where when she strikes you draw a spell, you have a barrier, you get free chips in, and you basically can get this really carried away and start searching all these spells from your deck. You can repost it and get trades and get spells from your deck. If you can Surge Strike, pick an enemy to always strike it, you can make it so your River Shaper plus like Fiora kills something, but you're also searching their spell. So basically, this card can just give you so many spells and your opponent can't come back. The utility of the spells is what makes this deck so strong. Noble 5 denies things, denies things. Sharp Sight, give an eye +2/+2, I can block Elusive this round. This is really good versus Twisted Fate Fizz. Probably one of the best combo tricks in the game. Really strong. 2-Spirit Refuge I think is very key this season because Twisted Fate Fizz can pack on a lot of damage, and if you have 2 of these, like if you have 1 Spirit Refuge, you might not be healing enough, but if you have 2, you'll be good. Especially because it's searchable for River Shaper, so you'll see both somewhat often. Screeching Dragon is just a challenger with Fury, so when I kill something, it's +1/+1. This can go for big pushes, attack, give other allies +1/+1 fearsome. Brightside Formation is really strong, one of the main points of this deck. If the meta becomes slower, or depending how the meta ends up being, because this is like the week 1 of the new patch, the new meta with Aphelios, this card can be really good. 9-mana, 9/9, play and attack, give always barrier. Sometimes you just go to turn 9, you just win with this. You could also run 1 like Relentless Pursuit, search buff River Shaper to go for bigger combos, but in short, a lot of decks can't deal with Fiora, especially the Aphelios decks. They can't kill with Calibrum. They have to go for I kill attack with Boxopus, which would kill it and live. But if you use Riposte, they have no way to deal with Fiora. They have very limited ways to deal with Fiora. So if you kill that Boxopus in a combat trade, which you probably will because you have all these kind of cards to win the combat trade, then you just win straight up. Very good. So this deck's in an amazing spot this meta. I think I guess I'll go over matchups real quick. At least in the top, I think that Twisted Fate Fizz beats Lee Sin, and it's good versus everything else. Even its hardest counter, or one of them is Anivia and Go Hard, and it can still beat both of those if you're really good with this deck. Top level Twisted Fate Fizz players think this deck is so strong that even the counter matchups, I think they're around even, or even slightly losing. I could see if you're like having played this deck long, you would lose to Anivia and Go Hard a lot of the time. But the better you get the deck, the more you realize you have ways to outgrind them, because what you can do is you just play Suit Up on Fizz, and you try and just kind of make it more about Fizz, and you just don't walk into like an Avalanche or whether anything too stupid. You kind of slowly play things in the right order, to then tap under certain mana, and then you make for big pushes only when they're safer. But Fizz is really hard to deal with Suit Up. So yeah, this deck's really strong. It's probably the best deck in the game. It beats most things. The counters aren't that bad against it, or it's not that bad against its counters, and I think it beats Lee Sin by a bit. Lee Sin beats Anivia. The access to deny, and basically this thing just doesn't really lose to Lee Sin or doesn't lose to Anivia. Nothing really threatens it. Anivia's champ spell is Harsh Wind, so it can freeze Lee Sin, which makes it an okay matchup for them. But you can bash me prematurely to dodge the freezes, as well as sure they freeze you, but then you're just gonna kill them with Lee Sin again next turn. So as long as you draw Lee Sin, because it struggles but doesn't draw Lee Sin, besides Harsh Winds, you just have so many answers to everything. You can easily kill them in 1 turn. And you don't. Well, the main thing is you don't care about their Avalanche and their Withering Wail. Like if you buff the Zoe and Sparkle Flight, even if they die, it doesn't really matter. Your main when Khan's Lee Sin, Ionia's always really been good against the Shadow Alfredo because deny for like the Harrowing and Runation and Vengeance. You get huge value off your deny costing 4 and their spell costing 7 or 9 or something, and you just win. So yeah, really good. You could also notify Gluttony and stuff like that if they try to go aggressive. So this deck beats Anivia. It beats most things, honestly. I think that it goes without saying that most of these decks beat the decks that I didn't mention. Like you might be thinking, oh, where's this deck? Where's that deck? But most of these decks I think these 5 are clear cut 5 above the rest. I could at the end real quick say what I think are like honorable mentions. Okay, Aphelios Twisted Fate. This deck's just well rounded. I mean, Aphelios Twisted Fate are 2 of the strongest champs in the game. It's really good against. It's basically it's well rounded. It's hard to say what it truly beats or truly loses to. It has a chance versus everything, but if you play against a deck that's not in these top 5, it usually will just win because it's just literally better. Like you have Aphelios, you level up, you win. Or even if you don't even need to level up Aphelios. If you just play Aphelios and they don't kill him instantly, you win. Place of Fate, level up, you win. Box boost from the deck, decks can't beat that. So this is just a well-rounded deck. Not many weak points. And it's just kind of the next wave of strong things that you can do in Runeterra, like some box boost from the deck. So really strong. Anivia beats Twisted Fate Fizz, beats aggro. The reason Anivia is also really good is that, so you have Feel the Rush, right? Which is the other Shadow Farer deck. So here's why I think Anivia is so strong. So Feel the Rush is better overall against everything being a well-rounded deck, but the matchup it wins are like, they're like 55-45 in Feel the Rush favor, or 60-40 in Feel the Rush favor. Anivia is such a polarizing deck, like it's so direct at what it does, and it's like, it's so clear-cut, okay, decks can beat this or they can't. Like this kind of strategy is super polarizing. They're just so, it's just so one-dimensional, and you can just see like, in the cards, like if you play aggro against this deck, there's no chance aggro wins. Even if they draw their worst hand, it's still like there's no way they'll win. So Anivia is more polarizing what it does. It's not as well rounded versus like certain decks that it goes even with. Maybe they'd be closer. But the decks it wins against, like Twisted Fate Fizz and like aggro, it destroys them. Again, I said that's good for Twisted Fate Fizz players to beat Anivia, but let's say you're not a Twisted Fizz connoisseur, it destroys those decks, and that polarizing nature makes it extremely hard to beat. Its positioning in the meta is really strong, and I just feel like the matchups you want it to win, it will win. That's the main thing here. Is if you have a goal here, like, okay, I'm trying to beat Twisted Fate Fizz, I'm trying to beat all the aggro, I'm playing like Pirate aggro or something in my elo, then if I play Anivia, there's no chance. Like, you will beat them, and this deck will definitely come out on top. Shen Fiora, this deck suffers from inconsistencies. As I said earlier, you can add Lord Protege, the 3-cost 2/4 challenger to have more 3-costs. You need to draw Fiora on River Shaper on turn 3. Your deck doesn't do anything. You have dead spells, dead stuff. That's one of the biggest issues with this deck, so I think Lord Protege can really help out with that, and I like to play it in my builds a lot of the time. But this is a generic build. This deck's really strong because it's how hard it is for decks to deal with Fiora. Like, as I said, Aphelios, Moon Weapon, Calibrum, deals 3 to follower, can't kill Fiora, so it's, you basically just said they have that riposte for the box boost and you win. It's good versus Anivia. It's really easy to farm their cards, and you have denies and stuff. Some people think this deck's good versus Lee Sin. I think Lee Sin's slightly favored, but it's not that bad. It beats Twisted Fate Fizz with a Sharp Sights and Double Speed Refuge to heal back. So, although I don't see Shen Fiora as being a particularly strong individually, which it is. I guess I'm giving it the high standard. I don't think it's as strong as other top 5 decks. It's definitely, I've always thought, a top 10 deck. But its matchup spread right now, I cannot deny that it's top 5 because of how it lines up. Being Twisted Fate Fizz, being Anivia, being Aphelios, for now until we see how Aphelios pans out. And doing okay versus Lee Sin. So even it's like, I guess, rougher matchups, it's still good versus. So this deck's in a really solid spot right now. And there's a lot of ways to change it based on the meta. There's so many spells and units you can put in to make it change for what you want it to change in the meta. All right, honorable mentions. Here are the other decks I think are in top 10, or I guess tier 2. But these decks right here, the only decks I think are in tier 1. These are the top 5 decks. They're all tier 1. That's why it was very easy for me to make this video. I think it's clear-cut top 5. These are tier 1 decks. Everything else is tier 2 or lower. But here are the decks I would consider to be very strong and can compete with these decks. And I guess honorable mentions. Feel the Rush, Troll Trendemir. Go Hard, which is Twisted Fate, Elise. Target Aso Plaza, like Zoe, Aso Plaza. I think Aphelios Victor is pretty good. I'm not sure how good, but it's definitely pretty good. Invoke is good, which is like Diana, Zoe, invoking. Aphelios Karma is interesting, could be good. Ezraven's really strong. Thomas Rock is strong, so he can beat Lee Sin, and can beat Aphelios decks and certain other things. Draven Jinx, I think, is strong. It's the best aggro deck. It loses a lot of the top matches, but its explosiveness makes it so that it can just win against a lot of different things. Like, even tough matchups, if it draws well enough, it can win. And Teemo Ezreal, which is a mushroom deck with Headcore Foundry. Those are the other decks I consider competitively viable right now. So, yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. Type in the comments, like, did your deck make it in? What do you think about these top 5 decks? I want to hear what you have to say. But besides that, I stream every day, 6:30 p.m. EST on Twitch. Feel free to follow me there. Subscribe to YouTube. I'm going to make a lot more deck guides. Let me hear what you guys want me to make videos of. But catch you guys later. Peace.